Have our next panel. Panelists can please come up and get mic'd up. Our panel is impacts of the cloud on network connectivity. So please come up and join us.
We're going to be sharing the mic. I'll stand here.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah, sharing is caring, that's right.
That's what I teach my 3-year-old. Hi.
So, hi, I'm Ilissa Miller, CEO of iMiller Public Relations. We're going to be talking about impacts of the cloud on connectivity today. We're going to have just a nice discussion. We stand between you and lunch pretty much, so we're going to have an interesting chat. This is not pre-planned at all. I have no idea what I'm going to ask, so this could get very interesting. But before I even start, I know Monica, we met you earlier, and thank you so much. Fantastic job, great conversation, thank you. So we met you earlier, but we haven't met Phil or Tony yet, but I'm sure everybody knows them. But if you want to take a moment just to say hello, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Phil. I'm the CEO of NYI. We run data centers in the New York and New Jersey markets with some facilities on the West Coast as well. And basically, we're a solutions company that also runs data centers.
I can just speak. My name is Tony Rossabi. I think I know many of you in the audience, and I look after the colocation and connectivity line of business for Digital Realty.
And of course, we're familiar with Evo from all over the world. So thank you, and thank you for being here today and having us here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cloud network-to-network connectivity. So earlier we heard from the folks over at Console, and that's one of the aspects of what I think we should be talking about is how has the interconnection and the network-to-network connectivity evolved since the onset of cloud. So we'll start with Tony, because I think from a history of interconnection, that would be a great area for you.
Yeah, sure. So a big part of our focus has been, not only the internet exchanges, but obviously the incentives of cloud compute. We spend a lot of time and focus with some of the large global providers, but also we made the announcement, I think, a couple of weeks ago, where we're going to be using similar service and console from Megaport, but clearly it's a great focus for us. And with it, it's the fastest growing ecosystem that we have today within our facility. So it's growing on a over 65% year over year. So I think for those folks who are interested, obviously we were more than happy to show you who is in our facility today, and obviously we want to grow not just with the global providers, but with the local providers and the niche providers of cloud services.
Yeah, so Phil, from your side, what does the demand look like from inside the data center onto the network?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously I don't nearly have the carry in my voice that you do.
Okay.
From our standpoint, over the last 5 years or so, you have a consistent shifting in workloads from the data center back into the cloud, and then when you have consistently used resources, you sometimes come back into the data center because it's just more cost effective to do it that way. And now, as much as I drive myself crazy with the words cloud and hybrid, and I think they probably make everyone in this room sick. The new word is multi-cloud. So the idea is, every one of these cloud providers, whether it's Azure or AWS or Google or what have you, has a kind of core competency that's relevant. So again, similar to what Telix has done, we utilize Megaport for that as well. But the idea is, making sure that companies have the ability to migrate workloads between their varying infrastructures so that they can really get the best of all worlds.
Yeah, I'm going to move over to Eva, if you wouldn't mind passing the mic.
Sure.
How are exchanges like DE-CIX, modifying or enabling connectivity to the cloud other than public internet or peering to other internet providers?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and the answer to this is that the internet exchanges will play in the cloud scenario probably the same role as they started to play years ago if it comes to aggregation for interconnection needs on a layer 2 traffic interconnection. What I'm trying to say is around internet exchanges there are a lot of existing ecosystems. These ecosystems consist today of, the majority consists today of network operators, ISPs. These network operators, they have to serve businesses, corporates, enterprises, providing cloud connectivity to. The internet exchange can play a role as aggregation point, working together with partners. These are solution providers like companies we named already today. These can be Console, can be Epson, can be Megaport. They do provide similar services with unique strengths, of course, on different platforms. Or network operators can use the internet exchanges to serve their customers with direct links to the big cloud application providers like Amazon, Azure, or Google. So in a nutshell, internet exchanges will play an aggregation role as they did for network operators. Now they can do the same for all of these businesses who want to get one-stop shop solution for cloud connectivity.
So, interesting perspective from the inside out. Now I'm going to go to Monica. Monica, we got to be honest here, right? What are you hearing in the marketplace? You're looking at our industry from outside in. And, you know, obviously these are companies that come to you, right? They pitch you stories. So what are you hearing with the stories? What are you reading? What are you writing about when it comes to cloud connectivity? And how does all of this potentially fit into the stories that you're working on?
Well, I have a lot of readers who are small businesses concerned with these type of things. But I'd say the number one thing with cloud is, first of all, how can I get the best service for longevity, right? So, and also cybersecurity is like a huge issue. Okay, now I've synced up with this provider, but how secure is the service? How long can I stay with them? And those are things that the readers really want to know. And if you add cybersecurity to any topic now, that's really the top concern of a lot of growing businesses, because, I mean, you can't even, as a consumer, you can't even go shopping without that being a concern. So yeah, I would say that's the number one thing that I'm hearing and seeing. And there's a lot of new players in cloud services, so they're definitely coming to us and wanting us to talk about their product or give their perspective on how these things can be made better.
Yeah. So, Tony, I know you don't want to use the mic, but I'm going to ask you to use the mic because we can hear you a little bit better. Security, great question. And you know, a lot of providers like digital are a little hamstrung with security because you don't go into that network. So what are some of the ways that you could provide assurance from a security standpoint for those who are looking to be in your space?
Yeah, so I would say there's obviously two types of security. There's the physical infrastructure security that we have, obviously, we outsource to a third party, and they actually look after the security of the building, etc. So we have that, and that's on 24 hours. We also have all the facilities with cameras, etc. But what you're talking about is actual cybersecurity on the physical application layer. So as you mentioned, we are concerned about that, but the challenge for us is we don't go up the stack. So we don't provide the cloud services, we use partners. Similar approach we do with security. We do use a lot of consultants to ensure that we have the most appropriate and effective processes and procedures, but also, we are not going to implement a security per se offering. It's just not and we don't want to interfere with many of the other folks here who are in that business. Our business is really more on the infrastructure side in terms of physical infrastructure, as well as the interconnection side. There was a point I just wanted to tack on the cloud piece, though. I think it was really important because the earlier panel talked about how wireless is growing, and whether it be basically fiber to the tower or whatever it might be. I think it's super important to understand that as we've basically just started to scratch the surface on cloud. I think it's growing at such an exceptional rate, and it's super important to understand that folks like Cliff and Ray and Chari are actually going to see a huge, as they mentioned, growth in terms of if they plug into the most appropriate patches of where the business is going. And I think that cloud services are going to continue to grow. Similarly, the wireless, but it all transcends into one sort of ecosystem, as I like to say, or we can call them communities of interest. So wireless, cloud, and content. They're all going to patch off over the fiber that these gentlemen provide that is a great service. And obviously, I think they're going to see massive growth because at the end of the day, we're not at the stage where we can provide long strands of wireless connectivity. Eventually it could be, but I think it is a key. So connectivity, the exchanges, the cloud services, they're all going to play a role. But getting back to the point, which is really around around security, how do we protect those networks so there isn't outside interference? And I think, unfortunately, it's not going to be up to me. I think it's going to be up to the folks that are here, but also, and I'm sure they're partnering and looking at this quite effectively because it is a concern. We had last year at Marketplace Live, we had a whole panel for those folks who attended, specifically just on cybersecurity, which was super, super important. And it's going to become more and more relevant as more and more things are pushed to the cloud. So I think, sorry for the long-winded answer, but I think I want to cover that.
That's all right. I know Eva wants to talk about something because there's some interesting things I think that you guys are working on, but I do want to pose an interesting question, and maybe we can go back to it when you're done, which is there space or is there a potential play for data centers or co-location operators to come up with a hyper-secure colo model that provides assurances to customers who are coming into your facility that you have vetted the type of connectivity or solutions that your customers are offering, so that even though you can't control what and how they're doing it, you can put measures in place to vet them so that you can offer a hyper-secure environment from cyber as well as physical security standpoint. Just a thought. We'll circle back to that.
And
But,
while you're thinking, I just wanna elaborate on the question what DE-CIX can provide to the security, because we are not the data center operator. These are the guys here. We are not the network operator. We do provide a platform for interconnection, and the interconnection to the cloud is a different one that we know from the classic bilateral or one-to-many interconnection or route serverless peering. It's a different one. It requires a very secure and robust resilient solution, because this is all businesses are looking into and asking for. So from our point of view, we have introduced today in Munich, it will be available in Frankfurt from today, Cloud DE-CIX Cloud Direct service, which is nothing else than using the DE-CIX platform for a very secure, dedicated, private link to a variety of different cloud operators or cloud aggregation providers like Console, Absolute. There are different examples from the market. So a network connected to DE-CIX can use their existing port as a physical interface on the platform and build up on this port a dedicated, very secure private link, either to one of the selected cloud operators like AWS, Azure, Google, and smaller direct, or using cloud aggregation providers as we already discussed about. So this is our solution today live in Germany and coming soon to other DE-CIX presences.
cool, thank you. So I'm gonna hand it over to Phil for my tough question, right? With the cloud comes an opportunity for new business models. We're seeing that with Console, with Megaport. Can that also be a new business model as it relates to co-location and data center? And if so, what could that look like from your perspective?
I'll give you the short answer, which is, of course. Otherwise, what am I doing here?
That's right.
Look. There are the companies that are sophisticated enough to be able to manage their own security platform, in which case a solution like Telix is perfect, and it wouldn't be feasible on that scale with the DLT and Telix model to be able to manage that element of the environment, which is why it makes sense to have an ecosystem that would maintain that. In our world, which is further up the stack, in the data center market, people want a turnkey solution. I mean, what we try to offer companies is, kind of the best of both worlds, and what the opportunity of, what the cloud really provides is this ability to kind of obfuscate the logistical hurdles associated with operating infrastructure. I think you can make a very clear argument that it's more cost effective at certain workloads to have bare metal or iron or whatever cool word you want to use to describe a server run your environment, but it's that logistical. People don't want to employ server huggers, and the cool kids are in the cloud, and you have to kind of utilize that tool set. But to the extent that a data center can come in and provide a kind of soup to nuts approach where you have managed networking layer, managed firewall layer to that network that gives them the ability to control their own environments, create their own rule sets, things like that, but they still have the data center to fall back on when there are issues, and there will inevitably be issues. And the data center can kind of operate the environment as kind of colo plus, high touch data center services, and then you utilize the layer 2 connectivity platforms like Megaport or Console or whomever to migrate workloads securely, because it's layer 2, between cloud operators and whatever resources need to live within the data center, while having that element of your environment managed by the people that are on site. And I think that's where the kind of retail service providers like us, which are getting fewer and further between, really fit into the picture.
Great, thank you. I don't know if anybody else had anything to add there, but I'd like to open it up to questions for anybody here. I do have some more questions if you don't, so I guess another question then, if you also are so shy. With colocation, then you have your networks, your layer 1, layer 2 networks, then you've got your exchanges, then you've got your cloud exchanges. You've got layers upon layers upon layers. Where does the responsibility lie for security as you add each layer? And is it getting harder or easier to maintain a level of security? So I don't know, it's a tough question. So Tony, you want to talk into the mic? Thanks.
We'll talk in the mic.
Thank you.
I think today the end customer expects security add-on basically as a free service, essentially, which is essentially, so I think you mentioned a turnkey solution, which is really what the customer wants. I come from the network background where at the time, DDoS mitigation was being introduced probably 8 to 10 years ago as a real big service. It's been around. And within 2 years, the expectation was that's just going to be coupled into your IP transit offering as a service on top of it and included. So I think the challenge, but more and more attacks have come and it's become much more relevant, so I think there is a way that you can distinguish that service as assuming it's somewhat more effective. But the question was really around who owns the security level within the facility, whether it's the network provider coming in, whether it's the actual infrastructure provider of the data center, or whether it's the person who's running the application. If I were to give you from a purely selfish standpoint, the data center perspective, we would say that it's going to be dependent on the application layer. That's what our view would be. But I think the onus is on actually everybody to control the security piece. So I think it's the infrastructure player who's coming in who needs to ensure that both on a physical level as well as on an application layer in terms of talking to, and that's why people look at providing solutions and look at providing end-to-end service from basically a turnkey. But then at the end of the day, the infrastructure provider with respect to the data center, physical, also working with the network provider, and then the application layer folks who are, whether it's a cloud service provider, an MNO, whether it's a content provider, they also need to have input. So it's going to be the aggregate impact of all three getting in the room and talking about how they're going to protect against some type of attack. They're inevitable. They're going to happen. And it's going to happen even more regularly. We see it.
It has to.
And it's unfortunate, but you got to protect yourself against what's going on.
Yeah, and it has to happen. It has to happen.
Yeah, sure.
And these are the discussions we want to have. We want to use platforms like different community organizations. We have Nanok today in the room. We have Christian there. So this can be one part of the discussion where network operators, together with data centers and other infrastructure operators like internet exchanges or cloud aggregation providers like Console, Absolute Megaport, etc., can sit together and have a detailed look on this chain. There's a value chain in providing this cloud connectivity service. All these parties are involved in. So there has to have a discussion about standards, where responsibility ends and where the responsibility of the other party starts, and close the gaps as possible.
Open my eyes, there's an opportunity too. So one of the things I want to leave everybody in this room with, some thoughts of. I think the cloud presents us all with opportunities to look at our businesses from a very different perspective. And I think that security at each layer of the platform or the capabilities that we're providing access to is really important, and having ownership of your own security of what you are responsible for. And being able to communicate that effectively with those that are working with you is only going to help your customers. So there's a business opportunity here, I think, for those to come in and understand how to put all those pieces together, how to have those conversations, how to enable people to work better together, and offer, a hyper-secure solution to the marketplace. Because I think that's something that's going to be required, if not already today. It's going to be asked for tomorrow.
Can I just think?
Yeah.
I think what's super important today is we talk a lot about it. I'm not sure there's an actual active participation from all the parties. And it's much more, today we're quite reactive. When an attack comes, like, oh my gosh, it's coming, we've got to handle this. You actually need to go out and really arm yourselves to ensure that these attacks are prepared. We actually have just started to implement that process where we're beginning to ensure that we're prepared for any type of attack. I mean, I shouldn't say just, we've actually adjusted our plan from a go-forward standpoint. So it's super important that you take much more of a reactive approach, proactive approach, as opposed to a reactive approach. And I think taking a reactive approach puts you behind the eight ball, and unfortunately you're going to be succumbing to the pressure of all these attacks.
I think there's an interesting point there. One of the things that we implemented early on is this idea of understanding traffic patterns and trying to identify the precursors to something that would be considered an attack. So that if you have a substantial amount of traffic that's unidirectional, then that it might be scanning for certain open ports or whatever. But there's nuance, and that's the problem. The problem is, as great as it would be to just walk into a room and say, we have the most secure, bulletproof, hyper secure environment, here you go. It's not necessarily believable. I mean, the situation is that, and maybe it's because I've been sitting in front of these things for 20 years, and I'm too honest about whether there's going to be a problem or not. But the idea of even providing a soup to nuts approach as you go up the stack to provide them with firewalling services or IDS services or IPS services or DDoS mitigation. At some point, there is a technology that is there on the internet. At some point, the customer is in control of creating secure passwords or not creating secure passwords, or having the compliance requirements internally that might prevent the next type of SQL based attack or the next type of compromise, or somebody within their environment might click an email or try to log into a fake Bank of America account or whatever happens. So there's only so much we can control, but being able to articulate that and offer people a solution that allows them to focus on the areas of their environment where they should be focusing, rather than wasting time maybe on the network layer where that's a fairly easy thing to outsource, and focus their efforts on the application side, and maybe articulating and pointing out the areas of the application that they should be looking at as a data center provider is I think it's important and it's unique, and in this hyper commoditized world, it's a differentiator.
Well, I think that application monitoring and open source is a panel discussion in and of itself. There's a lot. Next time, there's a lot there. Thank you guys. Thank you for the conversation. Anybody have any last questions? Well, we're going to be breaking for some food very shortly. So thank you.
Let's play football now. Where to do it? Oh, probably one of the best cities like Spain. Welcome to Madrid.
Responsible for the business expansion in the DE-CIX went live last year, 2016, and today we currently have 6 networks and it's still growing. Ivanov, the traffic is also progressively growing. We hope by the end of the year we will achieve 198. With such trends, we believe that the Madrid is going to be the next vibrant internet exchange in the internet. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, kids, I want to thank you. That concludes our program. I want to thank everybody for attending. Special thanks to our panelists and our sponsors. And very special thanks to Rob Myers and CB Richard Ellis for allowing us to have this. Thank you very much. It was great. We appreciate it. And my parting word is Dallas. Think Dallas. Anybody's going to be at Nanog or in town at Dallas next Wednesday night, please join us for our launch. And anybody who's sitting on these service orders, please sign. So anyway, thanks very much. Take care. Join us for lunch.
Let us fly now across the ocean again to the youngest members of our hospitality with your host there at the Agostino. That's music.